Busy, high-performing man. If you're out of shape because you've neglected your health over the last few years, and you already know this, if this is you, if you have that expanding waistline, your waist circumference, your belt size is getting bigger by the year, it is time to recognize what is really going on. And I want to talk about a fundamental concept here. As you've got out of shape, you've also become insulin resistant. This isn't talked about nearly enough by the medical establishment, but insulin resistance is a driver of inflammation, disease risk, including high cholesterol, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, many other inflammatory conditions. And it is imperative that you reverse insulin resistance. So let me talk about what insulin resistance is, why it's happened, so that you understand. So basically, going back a few generations, your grandparents and great-grandparents, they ate a very different diet and they had a very different lifestyle to what people have nowadays. They didn't eat food, which was very high in refined carbohydrates and sugars, and they didn't have so many insulin spikes during the day. And insulin is the hormone, which you probably heard of before, secreted by the pancreas, particularly whenever you eat a higher carbohydrate or sugar meal or snack. And the problem with toxic modern mainstream culture is that people are having these insulin spikes constantly during the day. And insulin is a fat storage hormone. It's also a hormone associated with inflammation. So the more insulin there is in you, the more chances there are that you're overweight and you're gaining that big belly and fat in other parts of your body. Insulin resistance is really not a good thing. Now, how do we measure insulin resistance? Well, the traditional way by the medical establishment is to do blood tests, including fasting blood sugar and HbA1c. You've probably had these before. If you haven't had them recently, you probably had them at some point if you've been under surveillance with regards to your health. And prediabetes is typically diagnosed around a HbA1c of 5.7. So 5.7 to 6.4 is pre-diabetes, and then beyond that is full-blown type 2 diabetes. The problem is, though, that insulin resistance has been building up for years and years before it shows up on your HbA1c or fasting glucose. And there is an even better test that I wish the medical establishment promoted more, and this is called HOMA-IR. HOMA-IR. What this does is it takes your insulin measurement, so a fasting insulin and a fasting glucose, so you have to get those two measured at the same time. And it's a calculation, and it's very easy to do whatever country you're in, whatever units you're using for fasting glucose and fasting insulin, you can plug them in to an online calculator and it will tell you what your HOMA-IR is. And you want this number to be as close to 1 as possible. And this means that you're insulin sensitive. And that is what you want. As a number creeps up to 2 and beyond, it indicates insulin resistance, prediabetes, type 2 diabetes. You want the number to be as close to 1 as possible. And what that will mean is that your physical health, your foundation, is as strong as possible. You are less likely to be inflamed. Your risk of certain illnesses, both physical and even mental health, improves dramatically. So if you haven't had a fasting insulin blood test, I would encourage you to go to your doctor and get one done at the same time as your fasting glucose. And the closer it is to 1, the better. That is the goal. And invariably, the good news is that if you're out of shape and you take steps to get back in shape, that HOMA-IR number will start to improve. You will feel a lot better. You will be a whole new person if you're insulin resistant, and then you reverse that. We'll talk more in future videos about all of the dietary steps you can take, including cutting back on portions, the refined carbohydrates, sugars, processed foods, optimizing protein, moving more, lots of things you can do. But I really wanted to emphasize that point to you. Understand insulin resistance. The chances are, because most people out there are insulin resistant, you have some work to do to become more insulin sensitive. All right, I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned something. If you are a high-performing man who wants to take yourself to the next level with your health and everything else you do, make sure that you have signed up for my free newsletter, linked down below in the description. We'll speak again in the next video.